And repeat after me. I take refuge in the Buddha.
I take refuge in the Buddha.
I take refuge in the Dharma.
I take refuge in the Dharma.
I take refuge in the Sangha.
I take refuge in the Sangha.
Keeping the palms joined. Palms down. All right, good morning, everybody. Nice to see you all. Thank you for showing up. This is a very, for us and this community, a very auspicious day over these next few days. But today is 8 years since we packed up the Dharma Bum Temple downtown and had the crazy idea to move into a 97, 98-year-old Christian mystic church. And somehow we are still here. Don't tell anyone that we're still here, but we're still here. And so over the next couple of days, just from day one, to today. But thinking about those 8 years that we were downtown, which also include really at that point, the 10 years that we were downtown. Which at that point also included the 8 years that we had Buddha for You. Thinking about those two communities that came together to create this space is really special. Some of you, this may be day one and you've never been to the Dharma Bum Temple and you might have no idea what I'm talking about, and that's okay. Some of you have been here for all or close to all 18 years, and some of you jumped in somewhere in the middle. So wherever you are on that kind of spectrum, that's where you are. And, if today's your first day, then maybe 10 years from now, we'll be talking about, today, 10 years from now, which really wouldn't mean much, but still. One of the things that popped into my head, as I was entering is in Buddhism, there's what they call Dharma protectors. And anyone heard that phrase, Dharma protector? Right? So the idea is that Dharma protectors keep the Dharma safe and sacred and allow it to, as they say in Buddhism, the Dharma wheel, to allow the wheel to turn. And so very often, for those who are maybe new to Buddhist practice or newer, and very often in this kind of modern Western America, 2025, California, San Diego, there's kind of this I'm stressed out, I need to meditate, I'm anxious, I need to meditate, my therapist told me to go meditate. There's a lot of reasons that people come to places like this. And there's also over 2,000, roughly 2,500 years of Buddhist history that has carried the Dharma, being the teachings of the Buddha, to this point today. And without Dharma protectors, none of that happens. Without the people for 2,500 years that have kept places like this and every single place that has ever shared Buddhism for the last 25 years, without Dharma protectors, none of that exists. And it's often overlooked because we think, well, we just come here because we're struggling. I mean, same thing for me. I didn't get into Buddhist practices. I always say nobody shows up to meditation in Buddhism because everything in your life is going well and you were just bored, right? I mean, I guess somebody does, but not really. We get into this stuff because we're struggling, because we're suffering, whether it's anger, stress, anxiety, sadness, depression, whatever it is. There's reasons that drive us to this path and this practice. But even within that, we have to always recognize the important role of what a Dharma protector actually is. And for me, that is this Sangha that we all create together. I don't think of it as, Maggie and I don't sit around and say, well, here's our 4 Dharma protectors, 5 Dharma protectors, you go keep the safe space. To us, it's everybody, everyone who enters this space that holds that accountability and responsibility to make sure that it's safe, right? And that's not easy to do, right? So whoever's in the back on the side, nope, not you, the other person, yeah. I just see an arm.
Hello, yeah.
Oh, Snake, do you want to come up? I just know how incredibly uncomfortable that seat is. Or, since I know it's you, you're welcome to stay there too. But I'm just afraid it was some new person like feeling like they had nowhere to sit and they got crammed in the back, you know?
I'm good, thanks.
Okay. So the Dharma protectors are not necessarily people that you identify and say, okay, this is your job. It's everybody's responsibility. And, you know, we've been very fortunate for 18 years to really continue to keep a safe, sacred space. And I really just want to kind of take a moment to honor and recognize everybody that has ever played a part in that. Because whether you realize it or not, whether you know it or not, you're all a part of what creates this safe, sacred space in whatever way you've done it. And I know that's not necessarily on people's minds when they come in here. And yes, I also know that sometimes little subtle, gentle reminders from certain people are required. But for the most part, you are all the ones that create this safe space. And in closing, kind of before we go to meditation, think about that in your outside life as well. That's a great ringtone. You know me, I normally just let it go and don't even comment on it, nor embarrass the person, but since it's you and it's such a great ringtone, that's great. Was that a cartoon? What is that? Not sure.
Ringtones available.
Yeah. It's the new Dharma Protector ringtone. But the last thing I was going to say was, you know, think about, to me, always looking at how we carry Buddhist practice into our lives. Think about what Dharma protectors are in your life. What in your life helps keep you and those you know and love around you safe and sacred and protected? Because Dharma protectors and everything in Buddhism really is just a metaphor to kind of carry out of these walls and bring into your life. Think about what boundaries you need to set up. Think about what areas mentally, emotionally, physically you need to create to feel always safe and welcome. Think about these things in every area of your life, not just in a Buddhist temple. Otherwise, we're making the mistake of just coming here and sitting thinking this is it and then going out the doors. Right? We don't come here to sit and figure anything out here. We come here to sit, figure some stuff out, but then put it into use out there. Because that's where the challenges are. That's where the suffering is. You know, that's where the real difficulties come to play. So with that, we'll start with the meditation. And thank you all for being Dharma protectors and making sure everything in this space is always safe and secure. Also, really ironic that the front door lock doesn't work right now, so it's a good time to mention that. So we'll start with the meditation practice. A couple of things I'll tell you before we begin. Nothing's going to happen to you. You're not going to float away. You're not going to have any mystical, magical experiences. The mind that races all day long is not going to shut off. Don't judge your practice, meaning don't ask yourself, is this working or not working? Are you doing it right or wrong? We're just going to sit, we're going to breathe. You'll hear sounds inside, sounds outside. This is life. Life is filled with chaos. And this practice is learning to get quiet and still within all of the chaos. Posture, you just want to be comfortable. If you're on a cushion, often it helps slide to the front third. Pushing the stomach forward allows the back to straighten. If you're on a bench or chair, however you're seated, just sitting up straight, relaxing the shoulders. Hands can be on the knees or lap. I'll guide us as we begin, and we'll settle into a little bit of silence. Most important, do not expect anything. We're just going to sit and breathe. Starting with the eyes closed if comfortable, or slightly open. Mouth is open or closed. We'll start with taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. eventually settle into a natural rhythm of the breath. Noticing the mind as it wanders, jumping from thought to thought. We'll start with gently guiding the attention, focus to the stomach or chest. Breathing in, feel them rise. Breathing out, they fall. Simply continue this practice, observing sensation of breath. Expecting nothing but to sit and breathe. As the mind wanders, lost in thought, recognize it. Release that thought. Return attention, focus to the breath. Breathing in. Follow breath in. Breathing out. Follow breath out. Learning to be comfortable in stillness and quiet. Just sitting, breathing. letting go of expectations, letting go of judgments from the practice, just sitting, breathing. And with the body still, rested, and the speech quiet, aware of all sounds, and the mind learning to settle, know what it's like to just sit and breathe. Knowing with each breath, there's nothing else to do. Nowhere else to go. And no one else to be. Everything beautiful, exactly as it is. Sitting, breathing. And once again, taking 3 deep breaths slowly. As you slowly open the eyes, slowly beginning to move. And most important, the practice of meditation is to recognize how you feel now, immediately after. Compare this to how you typically feel throughout your day. Recognize the difference, if there is one. Ask yourselves how you prefer to feel every day for the rest of your life. And realize however you feel now, if it's quiet, calm, and still, or a busy mind, racing mind, whatever you're sitting with at this moment, has nothing to do with anything I said. It's nothing to do with how you sit and hold the hands or cross the legs. It's nothing to do with the sounds around us or anything else for that matter. It has everything to do with your own mind and your own mind's reaction to an external condition. This is what the Buddha called pratitya samutpata, means dependent origination. This is the basis of the Buddha's awakening. The word Buddha simply means awaken. He was a human being, no different than any one of us. He began to understand why he suffered, why he got angry, sad, depressed, stressed, anxious. He began to understand the causal relationship of all phenomena. And what that means, very simply, for all of us, regardless where you come from or what you believe in or where you think you're going, your whole life is filled with things that happen. You react. More stuff happens. More reactions. That's what we get. This practice is simply learning what it's like to respond to something quietly, peacefully, still. Because for most of us, the way you responded to the last 20 minutes is quite different from how you respond to every other 20-minute period of your day. And so all we're working on is closing the gap to where the way you feel now is closer to how you feel always. Just as driven, motivated, productive, successful, whatever that means to you in your respective lives. But with a mind that's steady, clear, focused, distracted by nothing, and disturbed by no one. It's not an easy practice. It's not necessarily fun. It's not an escape, as often people think it is. It is direct perception into the present moment. And very often that present moment is filled with conflict, chaos, difficulties, challenges. And so this practice is learning to be with life as it arises and not running from things, which is sadly what most people do so much of their lives. This is becoming aware of what you think, what you say, and what you do in each moment. And ultimately the intention behind all of your thoughts and all of your words and all of your actions. That's the focus. It doesn't change. The very simple, basic Buddhist teachings don't change. It's the same thing. What is the intention behind my thought? What is the intention behind my word? And what is the intention behind my action? And becoming aware of that and how that plays out in your life. Meditation is free. Buddhist practice is free. It's just sitting, breathing, becoming aware of what you think, what you say, and what you do in each moment. And that's it. Once we stop trying to change, fix, control, manipulate so many things around us, hoping they do this, hoping they do that, wishing they do this, wishing they do that, so much time focused on the actions of others. This practice is about your actions. And when we do that, then we can go into the world to create change, coming from a kinder, gentler place, coming from a place of generosity, compassion, and wisdom, not from a place of anger and hatred, which is where so many people go into the world, angry and hating everybody else for everything they're doing, yet spending very little time at how their actions are impacting the world around them. That's really difficult to do. But that's the practice. It never gets easy. It's not a quick fix. It's not 6 months and everything is great. Your whole life you will face challenges and difficulties. That's the first thing the Buddha said. Life is filled with dukkha, suffering, discomfort, angst, dissatisfaction. And the question is how you respond to that. And for me, coming into literally the moment I walked in here, I had in mind loosely I was going to say something about it being 8 years since we closed up downtown and moved here. But as I was coming in, had a little potential incident that could have potentially been unsafe and I didn't feel comfortable with. So Dharma protectors, mind, the action of Dharma protectors, I should say, and that concept and that teaching was forefront in my mind. So that was why I felt I needed to mention it, because it's something for all of us to be aware of. So with that, I'll pause. And as always, just prefer to respond to questions, meditation, Buddhist practice, anything that you're sitting with. And we'll use the rest of our brief time this morning for questions. And to those who are joining virtually, welcome. My apologies, I didn't welcome you at the beginning. Thanks for not slamming the screen, although you might have, and I don't know. But if you have any questions, feel free. If you want to say hello, put it on the chat box there, and I'll do my best to respond. So we'll open up to questions.
So for a very long time, I have lived with a lot of nervousness and anxiety, and I picked up a habit from a really young age that I saw my mom do, and I haven't been able to stop doing it. And I haven't seen her do it for a very long time. And I've been thinking, if I bring mindfulness to this and meditation to this, I'll hopefully be able to stop. And it seems like lately, the more that I've been paying attention to it and paying attention to what's coming up when I'm doing it, it feels like I'm doing it more and more and more. And I'm just sort of wondering, if we have a nervous habit or a nervous tick, and it's something that's also very visible to others, how we can attend to that.
Yeah. I don't know. I'll start with saying that, which is interesting, doesn't help you at all either, but when you were sharing midway through, as I was listening, and you said as you started to pay attention to it, my mind immediately went to, I bet it's getting worse. Because that, to me, it makes sense that now you're aware of it, you're focused on it, which then just gives rise to it and perpetuates that cycle. But I think that part of it is, without getting into specifics, is always on things, not always, but very often on things that are just repetitive for us. Thoughts, words, and actions, things that we are constantly doing over and over and over again out of habitual patterns, behaviors, past traumas. In Buddhism, we call conditioned behavior, that we've been conditioned to do everything we do, whether we realize it or not. And some things with these conditionings are greater than others, stronger than others. And I think what I've found with practice which is slightly different than your exact example, but maybe it would help, is if there were, over the years or even now, conditioned habits that I've conditioned myself to do, habits or behaviors or actions that are just kind of routine at any point in time over the last 20 years that I want to kind of break free from, it helps me to look at what's at the root of that. What is the reason? What is the intention behind that action? Because everything we do has some sort of underlying motivation or intention behind it. And sometimes beginning to understand that can potentially allow it to unravel. In essence, what we're doing is seeing, in Buddhism, what we would call kind of the empty nature of all phenomena. We're seeing something that is happening, that is only happening because our minds are making it happen, right? I mean, nobody's making it happen but you. Just like nobody's making what I do happen but me. So there's something in my mind that keeps reinforcing it over and over and over again, that maybe there's a fear to stop. Maybe there's a fear to let go of it. Maybe there's a fear of what would it be like if I went beyond that or it went away. This stuff's not easy, nor am I saying this is even necessarily going to help. But I think understanding, on one level, let's say I picked it up from my mom, so it's kind of a very surface and also deep level. You can say, I picked this up from my mom. It also said she put it down. So the question then potentially is, why can't you? Not to answer or solve. Which would be nice if I could tell you why. It's make your day a lot easier.
I know why I do it. It's a self-soothing behavior, but
Okay.
I don't know why I can't stop.
Okay, so it's a self. Were you going to? Did I see your hand? Go ahead.
Well,
Yeah.
I just had a thought, and it's just because we talked about this last week. If you understand impermanence, you understand that all things come together for a period of time because of certain causes and conditions, and when those causes and conditions change, whatever's come together will fall apart and no longer exist. So for me, like I can remember specific times where something's been going on, and I think to myself, well, how long is this going to go on? And generally, pretty quickly after that, it stops because you realize it's not going to be there forever, whatever it is. And so, like you were saying, if you look at or you start to explore like what's behind it, once you recognize it, it's probably gonna,
And what you're trying to self-soothe from.
right, then it goes away because those causal conditions don't exist anymore. It's all like swirly up here in your head or up here in my head right now, explaining it. It's obviously a lot more difficult with stuff that's actually really, behaviors that you're doing. But generally speaking, once the causes and conditions don't exist anymore for whatever's happening to happen, it goes away. And sometimes there's just comfort in knowing that. It's not going to be that way forever.
Yeah, the fact that you said the reason is it's a self-soothing thing, as Meredith said, if what you're trying to seek self-soothing from, for all of us, we think of any actions we take and anything that triggers us and what we turn to for self-soothing, right? Some things are healthy that we turn to and some things are unhealthy. We don't have enough time today to get into all those, but there are things we turn to self-soothe, to feel better. But regardless of what it is that we're turning to, if the need and craving and desire to feel better falls away and we're okay with how we are, then therefore the condition of needing to self-soothe goes away, and therefore potentially the actions that we're taking go away, whatever it is we're turning to. So, yeah.
Something I really struggle with is expectation, disappointment, especially if someone makes a promise they're going to do something and depend on them, and then they don't do. I feel like totally I got let down, and it every time triggers a lot of pain, struggle. I sit with it. I think next time you better, every time I go to the same thing, is there a way I can relate to it differently so when it happens, it's a little easier on me than just going to all these emotions?
Yeah. So my first teacher, a Buddhist nun from Taiwan, taught me very early on, Jeff, learn to expect nothing from anyone ever. That's it. No, stop. We've been doing this a long time now.
Yeah.
And I love you dearly. There is no but. You always have a but, and they're always good, but they still undermine you actually sitting with what I just said. Which is, the problem here is not them, it's you. You have an expectation. The flip side to this, the other way to look at this is, you know what people are always going to do? Let you down, disappoint you, and not live up to your expectations. That's a given. It goes back to, I shared this a while ago, but this was actually not that long ago, but it was one time with a college group, and one of the college kids asked a question around, I'm afraid that everybody is judging me when I speak. And I looked at this person and I said, you don't have to be afraid of that because they are judging you when you speak. It's just what's happening. Not everyone in your life is going to disappoint you and let you down and not live up to your expectations, but many will. So the challenge is not, how do I make sure everybody lives up to my expectations? The challenge is, how can you stop expecting things from people? That was the lesson I was taught. And when you stop expecting things, there's no disappointment. Now, I just want to point out for anybody who's new, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're in a relationship, as an example, someone's treating you like crap, and you're just like, well, I don't expect you to be any different, so I'm cool being abused because, I have no expectations, I'm Buddhist. No, it doesn't work that way. Remove yourself from unhealthy, toxic environments and situations. Having no expectations does not mean that you just embrace all the shit that's coming your way. But I just point that out, which is, I don't think necessarily related to everything in your question. It's more just random stuff, people let you down. That's what they do. Absolutely. Anyone in here ever let anyone down? All of us. It's what we do. Anyone in here ever let anyone down and really not wanted to let somebody down? Yes, it's what we do. We're so good at it, and yet for some reason you think people are going to stop doing that. Never going to happen. Yeah. Hi.
So I remember being here 7 years ago and asking that same question and getting that same response and just like...
I've been saying the same shit for years. You don't listen.
No. I'm
teasing.
For 7 years I've been working on that. And it really is like trying to control how the disappointment's going to come and that whole control them. I can breathe through the moment. I can focus on myself and what I do.
Yeah.
I'm not worried about how I'm going to react to it. They're out there.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. You said a word that I didn't share this time, which I normally would say, is the control. That it really is surrendering, letting go, dropping this desire and craving and ability to control the actions of others, because that's what disappointment is rooted in so much. We want to control how they treat us and how they view us and how they speak to us and what they do for us. We have a construct that we've created in our heads about how people are supposed to be and what they're supposed to do.
Well, then I get the flip side. But it's not fair. They expect something from me.
They do. And I hope you keep
and
up
sometimes
your...
I go, well, I guess I'm going to disappoint sometimes, and that's okay.
Yeah. I was going to tease you and say, I hope you keep up your end of the bargain. But what else? There was another hand, someone. Go ahead, and then we'll go here. Yeah.
Do you think that the idea of do no harm or do as little harm as possible necessarily means do as much good as possible?
So let me just repeat that back. Do I think the question of do no harm or do as little harm is the same thing as do more good?
Yes, or does one, basically.
The way I'm hearing it, I don't think they necessarily balance each other out. To me, the way I'm hearing it, the way it's hitting me right now if you ask me 5 minutes from now, I'd probably respond. I know I'd respond completely differently. But what I'm initially hearing is these are all separate things. In my effort to do as little harm as possible, the focus is to do as little harm as possible, not thinking about how can I do the most good. In my effort as a practitioner to do the most good, I'm not necessarily focused on doing as little harm as possible. To me, your question sounds, and I know this from going through this is very personal, sounds to me, I'm not talking about you, but for me, this sounds very like what I did early on in practice. I was really great at justifying things in my head of why I was doing things or why I wasn't doing things. And to me, that's where it gets a little bit dangerous. Do as little harm as possible, do as much good as possible, but I think they're separate things. Now, I will add that in the action of doing as little harm as possible, that also kind of equates to, doing good. And at the same time, if I'm doing as much good as I possibly can, that also equates to, in that action, whatever that situation is, doing as little harm as possible. But to me, mentally, in my head, I just keep them separate.
Sometimes I struggle or find myself just doing nothing when I'm see something. I'll give a concrete example. Someone was going to go in the bathroom in their socks, and I wanted to say don't go to the bathroom in your socks. There's a rule, And I went through all this thing, but I didn't say anything because then I was got caught up in the why am I doing it? And am I doing it to protect? Am I doing it to be a jerk? Am I doing it to be right? You know what I mean? And I get caught up a lot of times in that, and then I don't do anything.
So then the question is, why are you doing it?
I don't know.
Well, that doesn't help.
All of the reasons, probably.
I don't think, I mean, I can't pretend to know what's going on in your head. I didn't know what's going on in my head half the time, but I don't think even in the three examples, like, are you doing it to protect? Are you doing it to be a jerk? Are you doing it to, because you think I'm right? Is that what you said the last thing was? There were three things you listed. I mean, without like attempting to figure out what's in your head, I don't think using that example that you were doing it to be a jerk. I think that you might have defaulted to this idea of, I'm trying to protect the space and keep the space clean that I love, but in my mind, I feel that if I do that, I'm being a jerk. I don't think you actually thought you were being a jerk. I think you defaulted to, in doing what you thought was right, you may be perceived as a jerk. I think those are two different things. And, you know, this idea of feeling that we're right is such a dangerous thing. You know, you look at Buddhist teachings, right view, correct view, it kind of like, and yet at the same time with Buddhism, there's no right and wrong, right? Because those are all just constructs and labels we put on things. There are ways that are proper and healthy to keep our lives, not just a temple, but our lives. And I think in practice, there's nothing wrong with recognizing in a temple space and in our lives what is healthy. And there's nothing wrong with sharing that. You know, I don't feel guilty or bad or worried that somebody's going to be angry at me because we set up guidelines to keep space safe, just like your life. You know, you have boundaries you've created in your life to keep you safe, right? And that's what you need. But yeah, I think it's maybe a little bit of just over complicating. Again, your intention was to keep people in socks out of the bathroom. That was your intention. Because if people wear socks into the bathroom, it's a public bathroom, there's pee on the floor, it's not clean. And then they leave that and they come into here. Which is, in theory, a clean, sacred space. That people are barefoot, people are sitting, right? I mean, socks go on the floor, then they go on the cushions, and people sit on the cushions. You want to sit and pee? I don't. You know? We don't label our talks, but if we did, that would be the title. So I think that was your first thought was probably not, I'm being a jerk.
I mean, I use that example because it was relatable, but like I feel like there are many other examples, like hiking and someone's playing their music out loud or whatever. There's all sorts of things where I'm like, and I just thinking through it, so much of it's just like not wanting the confrontation. Right.
Yeah, often avoidance of confrontation. And again, I think it does come down to the intention of what is safe and healthiest in that moment. And it's going to be different, right? The hike, not the music, using that example, not playing it so loud. Well, is that creating an unsafe and unhealthy mountain for people to hike because their music is up, or do you just not want to hear music? Again, these are questions you ask yourself. What is the real reason I'm sharing, that I'm feeling this way, thinking this way? And that's going to fluctuate constantly. Yeah. Another hand somewhere, I thought, yeah.
I kind of just thought of this as like kind of the opposite, like where I struggle between like the ability to protect versus like control. I think I'm helping people, but I'm actually trying to control the situation.
Yeah.
So I didn't know if there's like anything you could suggest to like decide whether it's one or the other.
Yeah. Welcome back, first of all. Good to see you. Andrew, thank you for the applause. I think in essence, your question around, control, protect, things like that is really even just summed up in the two of the basic schools of Buddhism, which is Mahayana Buddhism and Theravada Buddhism. And Mahayana Buddhism, well, I'll start with Theravada Buddhism. Theravada Buddhism, which is, they say the old school teachings of the Buddha. Hinayana means lesser vehicle, Theravada means of the elders. So it's two names for that school. But those are kind of the first, say, couple hundred years of Buddhist teachings, where the idea wasn't this bodhisattva engaged Buddhist practice, like let's go save the planet and the world and the animals and everything. Theravada Buddhism was really about, I need to awaken. I need to be enlightened, because if I'm not awake, if I'm not enlightened, how do I know if what I'm doing is actually helping or hurting people? I don't. Right? In the act of helping someone, maybe I'm actually harming them. Right? I mean, we've all, or many of you have been there or been around people, and like in the act of enabling people you love with addiction or whatever it might be. Right? We might think we're helping them, but are we helping them or are we harming them? We don't always know. And so the Theravada school of Buddhism is really, I need to awaken. Otherwise, I'm of no use. I mean, for years, the old Buddha free location, when we'd see all the Thai, Lao, Cambodian monks, they would come in, we'd always ask them to teach. And they're Theravada Buddhists, right? Practice. We'd always ask them if they ever wanted to teach and lead classes. And they're like, what do I have to share with anybody? You know? Yet you get any average Mahayana Buddhist person who's been at this stuff for 3 months, and they're like, I can teach you everything. You know? So then you flip to the Mahayana Buddhist practice, which is where the Bodhisattva practice comes in, and the engaged Buddhism, where the vow literally is to be reborn life after life to liberate all sentient beings from suffering. And so my example there is like somebody falls on the corner, you know. The example of if somebody falls on the corner, the question is, do I pick them up or not? And for me as a practitioner, being a Mahayana Buddhist Bodhisattva Path practitioner, I'm going to help them up. But I don't ultimately know if that's what's best for them. And so I think even in your question, you know, kind of to Katie's question about really exploring the intention behind it. Is it coming from a genuine care and concern of doing what you think is best in that moment? Or is it coming from a place of greed and anger and ignorance and just an attempt to control them? And nobody really knows that but you. And sometimes we're going to make the wrong choice in trying to help people. But I still feel as a practice, do everything we can in any way we can to help people. You know? Quick show of hands, who's heard my snail story? About half. So that's good enough for me to tell it and close with the snail story. So, because there's kind of two questions along those lines. So early on in practice, like I had this memory reflecting back on when I was a kid, and I used to stomp on snails, right? My house, like leading up the pathway, it would rain, and I remember like squishing snails. Something about the sensation, the feeling, the sound. I remember being like a 10-year-old kid and just stomping on snails. Fast forward years later, I get all into Buddhism and I read about non-harming and non-killing and all these types of things. And all of a sudden it hit me one day and I was like, oh my God, I've killed so many snails. And I felt this tremendous sense of like guilt and shame and remorse and like such a terrible person. So for like 2 years, I went on this like save the snail crusade. And I swear, like I just ran around and anytime I saw snails, I like moved them when it was raining. I was posting like, you know, watch out for the snails. And I was just really like protective of all these snails. And then after a couple years of that, then it hit me one day that I was like, oh my God, Jeff, you're so stupid. You keep moving all these snails, but how do you know you're actually helping them? So I would see a snail on the sidewalk, and I would think I'm going to move it off of the sidewalk, and like, yo, look at me, I'm such a good person, I just saved the snail's life. Well, I put the snail on the grass. I have no idea what direction or where the snail was going. So in that act of putting the snail on the grass, maybe they're like, now I got to go all the way back where I already was, and in that process of going where they already were, they get stepped on. The other thing is on a sidewalk, you can actually see them. If they're in the grass, you can't see them. So maybe they're safest on the sidewalk. I don't know where they're going. Maybe they're looking for their family member. I have no idea. But in that effort to like control and save the snails, I'm just manipulating their lives. And I truly have no idea what's best for them. So since that kind of realization of I don't know what's best for snails, I don't touch them anymore. I see them, I literally will say like a little prayer and transfer merit to snails to make up for all the pain and suffering of the snails I caused, which that doesn't make up for it, it just makes me feel better. And I wish them well and I leave them alone. So I no longer try to control the lives of snails.
If you saw a 10-year-old crushing a snail, would you intervene?
What's that?
If you saw a 10-year-old crushing a snail, you would laugh?
It would depend on a million factors. Yeah, I'd have to be in that moment and seeing the 10-year-old crush a snail to know what I would feel at that moment.
Can't
I don't
control
know.
the 10-year-old.
Yeah.
I just want to come back to like being aware of and appreciating the present moment.
Yeah.
Because I have to admit something. This conversation today started out one way that for me was perfect. And then it took a sharp turn, people laughed, and I don't know what the hell was going on. I mean, it all made sense and everything, but it didn't go the way that I anticipated it was going to go necessarily, which is fine. And I sort of have come to, over the course of, I don't know, a couple of years now, understand that it's way better to just sort of appreciate how life and things unfold rather than try to control and manipulate them. But with that being said, there's 40 people in this room today, something like that. And what I wanted to end with was that sort of watching and appreciating how life unfolds takes away a lot of the distress and dissatisfaction from, having the illusion that you can control anything or make plans and understand how anything's going to go. And it's opened up, for me, a lot more appreciation and kindness and, gratitude, really, for just how things actually are. And I was just thinking there's like 40 people in this room, and we had 40 reasons for getting up this morning and showing up here today. And we had 40 different complete lives prior to this moment that led us all here this morning, which is really cool. And I also want to say that we know that your birthday's in like 4
I knew this
days
was coming.
from now.
I knew it!
You knew it!
Something was off.
But we're all here today
Yeah.
to celebrate with you.
Something was off.
And 4 days, because I never talked this long.
Talk about surrendering control. Do you see how good I am?
Yes. Give it up. So, with that
What do you
being
need,
said,
Meredith? Where do you want me to go? Where do you want me to stand?
one moment. No.
No, you said.
I
You
sit.
sit. We'll
You sit.
sing.
Thanks.
Aw.
Okay, you guys don't want me singing at all.
Help him sing. To you.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Jeff. Happy birthday to you.
I wonder if you can make it flush. But
Thank you.
Jeff, we wish you joyful next 50 years.
50 years.
After that, you're on your own.
I'm done. I got 50 down, 50 to go.
Okay,
So,
Maggie has arranged for some food downstairs in the kitchen and drinks, so please join us over there.
thank you. And I'll close with what we always close with, other than thank you. But we'll join palms. May any merit gained from this practice be transferred to all beings in all directions. May all beings be at peace. May all be free from suffering. May this merit be transferred to Gracie Hatch during her time of healing and her family who suffers at this time. May they all be at peace. May we all be at peace and free from suffering. And just a few quick announcements before you all run downstairs to get cake. Thank you all for being here. My name is Jeff. I'm a Dharma Bum. We opened up this temple 18 years ago to introduce Buddhist practice to those who show up. Those of us who lead are not monks, we're not nuns, we're not gurus, we're not masters, we're not teachers, we're not looking for students, we're just practitioners. We do our best to take our understanding of Buddhist teachings and put it into terms that hopefully make sense to those who show up. Every night, different classes going on, different people from different Buddhist traditions leading different classes. Every Thursday at 4:30 we do, I still think, probably the best thing around here. It's a food redistribution program where we prepare gourmet vegetarian meals, also known as peanut butter and jelly, and we feed people who sleep on the street. So anytime you think your life sucks and you lack gratitude, feed people sleeping on a sidewalk and attempt to put things into perspective. And if that doesn't work, keep going back until it does. Next Saturday, we have a new, we kind of do it sporadically throughout the week and the month, but next Saturday we'll have our first, we're doing monthly temple cleans. So next Saturday from 12 to 2, it'll now be the third Saturday of every month. So when we finish here at 12, we'll spend from 12 to 2 cleaning temple. No one's obligated to do anything around here, but anybody who wants to stay and help clean after, great. Otherwise, we'll also have other people showing up, but that'll be a new, again, monthly thing. Otherwise, thank you, Meredith, Normal, Maggie, of course. Thank you for the birthday cake and all the love. And I'm serious, we are all Dharma protectors. It is our responsibility, and to me, a tremendous honor to carry this space. So thank you all. See you soon.